So in this week's episode, we're going to talk all about sober dating, what it is, who is doing it, what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks, what are some sober date activities. We're going to cover it all. Hey Enzo. Oh, this is probably too long for a voice note.
Hey Claire, I know. Save it for the podcast.
Your space for an unfiltered and candid conversation.
Skip the small talk and dive in deep.
Hey everyone!
Hey everyone!
Welcome back. We're here for another season. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Can you believe it? We're back. It feels like it's been so long.
It's been a while.
Our last episode.
Well, thank you to everybody who's returning. Thank you to all of our new listeners. We are too long for a voice note.
Yeah, thank you for checking our Instagram. We've been away, but we've been doing some live interviews. We've been resharing some old content, some reels. So you didn't
miss us too much.
Yeah,
but now we're back
with new stuff.
Exactly.
So that's exciting.
Speaking of new, we have a new team member on the Too Long team. Her name is Nemi. Welcome, Nemi. Nemi is our social media assistant, so she will be joining us.
Please send her love.
Exactly.
She's doing great, and we love that. She's really helping us with a lot of new content. So
yeah.
Hello,
Nemi. And in other news, you may have noticed our new mic covers. So thank you to Chief Swag Officer for sending us our gorgeous new mic covers.
They're beautiful.
They are lovely. Love
I like them.
The logo looks so good on a mic cover.
Out. So if you're interested, if you have a show or like anything that you need like a mic cover, we're gonna leave their details here
below. Tag them on all the socials.
So make sure to check what they do because they're really good. And
definitely. I'm loving it too.
For a new season, it's like
such a vibe. This week, to start off our new season, I want to talk about something that I think it doesn't really directly impact us anymore, but it's something I've been seeing popping up on the internet in certain spaces. So I want to talk about sober dating. Have you heard about this phenomenon of sober dating?
Yeah, I have actually.
Have you?
And I think it's a really interesting.
Give me your enthusiasm. He's like, yeah.
Sober dating. I mean, it's quite hard. I mean, okay.
Let's just get into it a little bit.
First,
so just some statistics right at the beginning of the episode. So there's definitely in the UK been a really big increase of interest in this movement. So a 2022 survey by dating app Bumble revealed that 34% of UK users are more likely to go on a sober date now than before the pandemic, with 62% believing that it would help to form more genuine connections. I thought that was interesting.
Oh my God, yeah. Heroes.
And this is kind of, we'll go into it in more detail, but more of a kind of generational trend. So younger demographics are leading this change. In 2021, 38% of 16 to 24-year-olds and 21% of 25 to 34-year-olds in the UK either didn't drink or hadn't drunk in the past 12 months. So what is sober dating, you might ask? What is it? It's basically a movement that's growing in trend, and it focuses on forming meaningful connections without the influence of alcohol or drugs. And as we said, it's kind of reflecting a larger shift towards kind of more sobriety in general in different countries. Reasons why people may sober date. Obviously for mental health. So alcohol can be used in some circumstances as a mechanism for anxiety and depression.
Of course,
Sobriety culture and changing norms. So the conversation around sobriety is going a lot further than addiction. And then once again, authentic connection. So alcohol can sometimes really mask vulnerability and true self-expression, connecting more deeply when they're not under the influence and allowing more honest conversations and emotional intimacy. Got various things that I want to talk about, but before we go into it more, what are your initial thoughts on this, Enzo?
No, well, wow. I think, wow. Well, I feel like for a generation, it's quite like shocking our age group, which is 30 plus. I think it's quite like, different thing to do, because I don't know if you can recall one of your dating or your dates being going without alcohol.
No, never.
Right, it's like, it's really difficult to think like going on a date without alcohol. I mean, the first date, let's say.
Why do you think that is though? Why do you think that, like,
I think anxiety for sure. I think like the way, I think the build up to a date, it's so hard, it can be so stressful, and you want to show your best self and all of that. And to
Yeah.
kind of like keep up and not to show totally like unhinged, you kind of go to alcohol to just relax, because obviously when you drink, you're more relaxed, you're more easygoing, and all these things. But in all truth, it's like the more you hear and the more you were reading all these things, it seemed like more the right thing to do, because it's weird that we do that in datings when we want to show who we are, but then we're not showing who we are. We're showing like a alcohol
Also
version
true.
of who we are.
Yeah.
Which is also part of
Of who
things,
you
but
are.
it's not what you really, really are every day. So it's strange. But I guess at the same time, dating is not like such like a natural thing to do. It's like sitting in a place in front of someone that you don't know, and
It's
being
true.
like, "Hi, what's your name?" or or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
what do you like? Do you like red? Do you like black?
I think it comes to vulnerability, because it's sort of like, why do we, to your point, like, why is it so nerve-wracking
Yeah.
to go on a first
Show
date?
yourself, right?
And why do we need that little like
Hump.
boost
Yeah.
kind of thing
Yeah.
before a date?
It is like weird, and I think like it comes from like a lot of pressure probably that we put on ourselves, or like how we present ourselves and all of that. And also, I don't know if it has. Now I'm thinking, I haven't been dating obviously for 4 years now, so I don't know if nowadays, if I have to go on a date, how I will do it. I don't know, maybe I just feel like as older as I get, I have the need of drink less. I don't need as much drinking
I agree.
to have fun or to have a good time, to show myself, blah, 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 blah. So I think if nowadays I go on a date, I will be way more comfortable not drinking.
I was trying to think of my own dating experiences and like thinking, I don't know what yours were, because you said what you think you'd be like now, but do you think your dates were quite boozy before?
I would definitely, I think they were all like around drinks. I remember like my first date after like, like, let's say my first date in London, I will say, was next to like, I don't know, 2 bottles of wine. I dropped a glass at one point, I wasn't drunk, but I was that level. And I think I cannot remember one day that it's, even if it's a dinner, you will always drink.
Yeah.
Because also, I guess culturally, right? If you're going on a dinner, you're going to have a drink, which is maybe a problem in itself, why you need to have an alcoholic drink while dinner. So I think in every single context that we share with others, we include alcohol. And I think that maybe is also where it comes from.
I think it's because we're used to seeing alcohol as a reward, right? So, but that's actually, I think, what's changing with this movement. And it's sort of like, we now know that alcohol is really bad for the body. So is it a reward? But we our generation and above, I think, obviously there are people in our generation, our age, that are also doing this. It's not just Gen Zers. But I think we're not used to, it's like, oh, it's a Friday night, let's treat ourselves with a glass of wine, that kind of like mindset.
I was thinking like when you were going on dates, like, did you have like maybe like a certain amount of drinks that you were allowing yourself to have? Or do you have like something like, I need to stop at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Things go a bit like out of hand.
And it's going to be even worse. I don't know, like...
Do you know what I actually realised when I was reflecting on this and reflecting on my single era? Was that this is super toxic. I didn't used to go on a date without having a drink first.
I remember that.
Do you remember? So I'd either have a drink here, or like I'd either have a drink at home, or I'd arrive early so that I could have a pre-drink. And it actually took me a while, knowing my boyfriend, before I stopped doing that. I think it was maybe a while. I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 dates, and then I was...
A while, 6 months in, Claire still needs to be drunk to meet the boyfriend. It's like, wow, you sure you like him? What's going on here?
I always needed to have a pre-drink, which was like literally like a pre-drink before going out, and it kind of made me think of like going out as well. And I think in my case, I would always have a drink before going out, not because I wanted to save money, but because I could be nervous as well. I think also I wanted a pre-drink because it does save money. I'm thinking like, way back in the day when I was like going out, but I needed a pre-drink before dates because I was super nervous.
I guess funnily it's kind of like a way to ground yourself, which is weird because it's alcohol, so it's not definitely something grounding, but I guess like maybe when you're so excited, you just want to have something that keeps you like a bit more like, less. I think maybe it's a thing of like showing like the cooler side of yourself,
Maybe.
the relaxed side of yourself, because you're kind of selling your
Yeah.
own personality when you go on a date. It's kind of like a sales pitch, and then you want to be like, oh, I'm this cool and I'm this relaxed.
Maybe. I think for me,
I
it just
don't
kind
know.
of took the edge off, which is not at all like a good way to be. I realize that. But I was thinking about what you were saying about if you were dating now. I think I kind of agree with you. I don't think I'd be drinking that much, because I think I'm also not drinking that much in my everyday life. Like I recently went on holiday and I like barely drank. And if I drank, I had one drink.
Yeah.
I love, this is really old,
Yeah.
but I love having one drink now. It's really, really old,
30s.
but I really love it. Like it's like, ooh, one drink. Like if I meet a friend, like I went for dinner with a friend last night, one beer.
Yeah.
And you just feel so good, because like, I don't know, like what I was going to say was, do you feel like alcohol is bonding or not?
I think definitely culturally there's like a big bonding scheme. I don't know if scheme is a word, like a big bonding idea around alcohol, and this kind of like pulls me back from where I'm from. I'm from Venezuela, and part of our culture is to drink, and like the way that, you know, like you have this idea of like you pick up like, I don't know, 24 beers, you take it with you, something called el vacío, which is like it's like a crate. So you bring it, and it's gonna be a group of friends. They're gonna sit all around. You're gonna drink the shit for the rest of the day. So that's like an idea of how to be social. That's how you socialize. That's how you get together with people, and that's how you bond, and that's how you get to know more new people. That's how you do parties. So I guess it depends on the cultures as well. Like that's really like a big way of how socialize. Which again, I guess that's why we have this. That we even need to feel like that we need to have a drink even going to like a date, because it's so ingrained in our way of like. Maybe it's like a. And that's something that you see so much happening in, doesn't matter the culture, but it's just like, it's like, oh, if you drink, it means good time. If it means good time, it means connection. Maybe it's like
true.
something around that.
And I think that that's something that definitely the younger generation is moving away from.
100%,
for sure.
yeah.
Because I think maybe, I don't know, I feel like our generation and maybe our parents' generation knew not the dangers of alcohol, but they knew, you know, we all know that like alcohol has like calories, or that it can impair different things, like, and it can have, you know, we know about anxiety, for example, or like a shame over, so we know that it can affect your mental health. But I think we've still really grown up with that super drinking culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the potential challenges of sober dating.
Yeah.
So there are obviously, like we were talking about, a lot of social pressures to drink and cultural expectations. So people might face a lot of judgment or rejection. For our audience watching or listening, I think we would love it if you could leave us a comment and tell us if you've given up alcohol for whatever reason, and if you've found a lot of judgment or questions around that. Because I have a friend who hasn't drunk for a really long time, and they were saying that they just get like, instead of having like whatever, like lemonade or something, they'll have like a wine that's alcohol free, so that they don't get questions about why they're not drinking, because people can really interrogate you about that. So like we said, there is kind of that thing about dating culture being built around alcohol. So kind of, are there places that you can have sober dates? We'll go into that in a little bit. And even though there are actually apps which exist for sober dating, these are quite new. So obviously if you want to date somebody who also doesn't drink, obviously you might not want to, you can be absolutely fine with somebody else drinking,
but can I make it easy for you as
presumably
well?
you'd want to be like quite transparent about why you're not drinking. I mean, maybe not, but you know, obviously you're going to be reducing your dating pool. But I think that that's not really an issue, because I think we all have these limits of like what we are willing to, like who we're willing and not willing to date anyway. So it's just another.
I guess for some people it makes easier if they don't have to, again, go into the splitting yourself. It's just like, if you like dating someone in an app that automatically are people that are not drinking, just there's no questioning, there's no why you don't do it, there's no la la la, or it's not like, and if it is a question why you don't do it, it would be a different type of conversation. It would be from a judgment point of view, I feel.
But
so
I think that's interesting, because I think if you're somebody who's not drinking on a date and somebody asks you why you're not drinking, that really opens the door to see whether they are somebody who you would want to date. Because if they're like, oh, that's fucking boring, then you're like, well, maybe this isn't somebody who I want to know. Or if they're like, oh, I get that, I also suffer from anxiety or something, then that could be like really bonding.
It's a good point. It's a good point, because I think like this is something I think I try to stop doing a bit, but obviously it's different being on a date, because when you're on a date, I guess you are in a space of like asking things to each other to get to know each other. But in other contexts like work or things like that, I think I try to avoid asking people when they're not drinking why. Because it does feel like what your friend was saying. It feels like judgmental. It's like asking like, why you're not drinking? But why you don't drink? But have a drink, like you can tell people being like, I don't want to have a drink. And there's kind of like already like this, they know they have to probably answer some questions and like blah, 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 blah. I guess in a dating scenario, it could be different, because you're there to kind of like ask and reply questions, I guess.
It's true. And an example that I found, if somebody said, you're arranging a first date, for example, and the person says, why don't we go to this cocktail bar? Maybe, of course you can have non-alcoholic drinks there, but maybe a good reply would be, I actually don't drink, but how about we go to a coffee shop?
Yeah, fair enough,
Which I thought was quite good.
I mean, if the other person doesn't like it, well, already from the get-go, that's
exactly.
not the person for you. I think there's something about it made me think about like the way that we choose places to go for dates. Like, I think there's a very like this glamorization, I think is the word.
Yeah.
You glamorize something so much and like idealize something so much, and I think like cocktail bars and things like that, they feel like special, they feel like glamorous, they feel like there's something like worth a date. And I think like something culturally, like obviously from years and years in movies, or like how we perceive things, like if you're going to a date, you need to try to do something a bit more elevated. So you think a cocktail bar would be something elevated.
Yeah.
So that's ingrained as well.
It's true.
And maybe for some people, let's go for a coffee. It's like, are you going to take me to Pret? It's like, But then I think that's why that's good. That maybe all this like, trend of like beautiful, amazing, great coffee shops are popping around, even though there could be too many. But you can go to really fancy, beautiful, elevated, they feel special coffee places or whatever that also can feel nice for a date.
Definitely.
It won't be a Pret.
So some sober date ideas include a nature walk or hike.
A nature walk?
Nature walk.
What's like nature walk? Like, what type of walk is that? Tell me more.
A dance class.
Nice. Well, that's a lot for a first date.
I think you'd like this one.
Okay.
Go for ice cream.
For ice cream. That's lovely. That's a really cute
idea. I knew you'd like that one.
And also you can like sneak peek what's the flavor they're choosing.
Exactly.
They can tell you a lot about the person,
Visit a farmer's market.
Oh, that's so wholesome. Like,
visit a museum. Which
Cute.
of those one would you pick? I think you'd pick the ice cream one, right?
I think I would pick a museum. Actually, I had like one first date in a museum.
Really?
It was really cool. I didn't plan it, by the way, but it was like an exhibition.
Yeah.
I think it was really, really cute. Actually, well, we did drink after, but actually now I think about it, like, we spent the first bit of the day without drinking.
That's quite cute. And did it carry on with this person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
For a bit.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So now I think about it.
I think a museum is fun, and also you could do, for example, if you're London based, but I'm sure if you're listening to this in other cities, they do it like late at the Tate, for example.
Yes.
Which is like a kind of club night type thing.
That's a really good idea.
You know,
because if it's like a club,
exactly,
it has art. You don't have to drink.
Music, but you don't need to drink to be there. You know, I think we've gone like completely sober, right? I don't think I've drunk there. Maybe once.
And then we have like rave music in the museum, like and you're like, it's actually cool. It's a cool
and you
concept.
can do like sometimes they have like little pockets where you're doing like drawing classes. I love that shit.
That makes me think, like, now that you have a boyfriend and you have like a long relationship now, how much alcohol is involved in your dates? Because I feel like with your partners, I think ideally you should be always like do this type of like going out for dinners, like a little
dating, definitely,
little dating kind of things, right? That's how it should be to keep the relationship like I feel like
for sure
floating and full of love. So
definitely.
Do you find yourself that when you go out with your boyfriend, do you need to like do it around alcohol? How much alcohol it include? has changed maybe since the beginning into now, how much alcohol has been like reducing, or maybe like, because you never know, maybe if you're going into like a bad moment of your relationship as well, you need to have more alcohol too.
Also true.
So
also true.
I don't know, like,
I feel like for us, I think definitely we were drinking a lot on the early dates, definitely, and all of the like our first date was in a bar, and we were like really drunk by the end of it. Like I was like, let's get another one. He was like, yeah, another one. Like we were there until the bar closed. How romantic. But we were quite tipsy, and then I think for the first few dates we were quite tipsy, and then we kind of like we started having like sober dates, and then I think at that point I was like, I actually really like him. I remember when we spent like a whole Saturday together. It was like a Friday evening and we did a yoga class. That was really nice. That doing a class, if you're into fitness, is a really good one. So we did a yoga class, which was obviously sober, and then the whole day, and it was sober. That made me think like, oh, I think I actually like,
if I can survive with this person all
and
these hours,
exactly, I was really comfortable as well, and I didn't need that alcohol. But to answer your question about now, I mean, yeah, of course, like, we both enjoy alcohol. Like if we go out for dinner, we'll always have a drink. Most likely, like we've just been on holiday, like we would have like a drink. Like I was gonna say most days, but actually, like, you know what I think shifted something for me, which is interesting, is it's just been January. And I didn't do it officially, but I kind of did dry January. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Twist, I enjoyed
but I think it kind of like lowered my, and I tend to do this in January because if we go to Madrid for Christmas, I'm drinking every day like a demon, like wine, at least one wine every day. And I'll be completely transparent. The reason for like stopping it in January was like a bit of weight loss. Because I felt like really like sluggish and bloated, and I was like, oh, you know, and then I'm going on holiday again. But I think I think that giving that month off kind of like lowers your you know, it's probably like when you give up sugar or something, you're like, and then when you go back to it, it's like, oh, I actually don't need that much. But I mean, our dates now like can involve alcohol, but they don't center around alcohol.
That's interesting.
One thing I was wondering about was about this kind of thing about vulnerability, because something I was reading of maybe a potential drawback, if you consider it to be a drawback, is that alcohol can kind of speed things up a little bit. And without alcohol, if you take alcohol out of the equation, are you kind of like slowing down that connection with somebody? Like maybe if you have alcohol, you might sleep with somebody quicker, maybe, or because you're really drunk, it might like cause you to like cry in front of them, and then that somehow kind of draws you closer. So is that something that we see as a drawback, or how do we see that?
Definitely. I mean, I think obviously nothing is always all good and all bad. I think like that, what you were saying, it's a really good point. Some of these things may be based on a bit of toxic behaviors that we have. Because I feel like probably you don't need to be, I mean, the fact, you know, like, oh, I was so drunk that I cried, so that helped me to open up faster, where it shouldn't be that. That's a bit of like a fucked up thing.
Totally.
But it makes sense that maybe after that you have a connection forever for that person. So I guess like not everything could be like really good or bad. I think ideally, in ideal world, these things should happen like in a honest, 100% focus and like present way. But true, nothing is like, I don't think at the end of the day things are like a rule book, you know, like,
and I think
things flow different ways.
It's true. One advantage I think about not drinking when you're dating or getting to know somebody is I think that you can maybe read the red flags clearer. And that's a big argument for the sober, curious movement and sober dating is that, you know, there are things that we can look over or look past when we've got the glaze of alcohol. Maybe. So maybe you're a lot more... You can read people's body language more. And I think that about myself 100%. When I think back about dating. I think, God, if I'd like been a bit like less drunk, maybe I would have been like, fuck no, you know? I also remember, so one date that I did have that was partially like one drink and then the rest sober, was I remember that we like went to a bar, so like we had a drink, and then he suggested dinner, which by that point I already didn't really want to do. But I was like, he was nice, so I was like, okay, fine, let's go for dinner, even though I knew it was going to be like a no. But I was like, he's nice, let me give him a try. So we went to dinner at this really healthy restaurant, and they didn't have any fucking alcohol. And I remember being like so devastated. And that for me, because I was already like, that was near the end of before I met Jorge. So I'd been dating for a while, and, you know, and I remember thinking like, this is definitely a no.
Yeah.
Because why am I so, because I was bored. He was nice, but I was like, I'm only going to get through this if I have a glass of wine.
Wow.
And I had to do the dinner sober. And obviously I sobered up from the first drink. And I was like, okay, definitely no, because you know what I mean.
The red flag there.
Have any final things that you want to talk about, Enzo, regarding this topic?
I'm really interesting about this, like sober society. No, sober
curious movement, sober curious movement, and then sober dating, sober society.
I think for some people maybe it seems like a bit silly when, you know, nowadays everything has a name, but I think this type of things really help like people to focus, and like maybe I think like when you put names to certain situations, it kind of helps you to be like, oh, maybe that's what I need, and kind of keeps you accountable in a way. So I think it's really good these things happen, because also definitely we should be, you know, drinking less, we should be eating less sugar and all these things that are bad for us. That doesn't mean not having fun. Obviously it depends on what's good or better for you, but I think it's good to have more of those, portraying this as a good thing. I think in my generation, if someone was not drinking, it would be like, oh, you're weird. But nowadays, I think it's way more like, oh, that's good for you. You know, like the thing has changed a lot. How things
I think it's important though, what you were saying about kind of like giving it a name and like all of that stuff. I do think that's quite important, because it's, you know, like when I became vegan, for example, I knew that there was this thing called veganism, and therefore I could like, at that point, you know, because that was 10 years ago, I was looking at things more on YouTube. So I was like, vegan diet, what I eat in a day, vegan. So I think it's really important that these kind of names and kind of movements and groups exist, so that people feel represented and feel seen, and then therefore they can like go and find resources if they want to. Do you know what I mean?
And be like, oh, that's how it looks, that way of being.
And that's the beauty of social media. Like, other people there'll always be somebody else on TikTok who's doing this and gives you tips for sober dating. 100%. We're going to leave some articles below,
please,
if you want to go into this more, and it kind of references what we've been speaking about. And so thank you so much for this topic.
This is so exciting to come back to.
I know, I'm so happy.
Such an interesting topic, and please, everyone, remember to follow, like, subscribe,
do all of the things.
Drink or don't drink, do whatever you want, but it's good to do things. I think this is could be a year of being mindful.
Definitely.
Do it or not do it, but just be mindful. Why you're doing it or why you're not doing it.
That's the key. Well,
good
guys,
what I'm doing this hand.
I don't know. Put that away. We will see you next week, guys.
Thank you, Claire. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.